well as the treachery and bias in speeches and opinions about our country, aiming to make it a pariah in the international community.
So, will not have any relationship with France. According to the spokesperson, the government of Burkina Faso has decided to cut all ties.
What African countries are lacking. For instance, if we see insecurity in Nigeria currently, instead of the Nigerian government working with other African countries to make sure that we have a general plan,
France just tried to overthrow the government of Burkina Faso just a few months after France was kicked out of Burkina Faso. Well, Burkina Faso says it has stopped what they describe as a major plot against their military government.
So Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore has cut off diplomatic ties with France. Every diplomatic ties that they have with France, they've cut it off. Like no more whatever diplomacy between France and Burkina Faso. And the amazing thing about this is that, you know, when Burkina Faso does something of this sort, definitely Mali and Niger, they are going to follow suit. This is what is happening. And bro, it all started because France basically took Burkina Faso to the EU Parliament and they passed the resolution against Burkina Faso is not safe and all sorts of things. So basically it's like France is still meddling in the affairs of Burkina Faso, and they said no, we are not happy with this and we are not going to take it anymore. So we don't even want to have anything to do with you again. Bro, I don't want to talk much. Let's go into the videos, watch, come back and talk.
Government statement. The government of Burkina Faso wishes to inform both the national and international public that it has decided to break off diplomatic relations with the French Republic effective today, 26th June 2026. This decision comes after a thorough assessment of the current state of bilateral relations between Burkina Faso and France. In fact, the essential conditions for fostering relations based on mutual respect, reciprocal trust, respect for the principle of non-interference in internal affairs, and national sovereignty have not been met. This situation is reflected, among other things, by the relentless activism of the current regime in France against the interests of Burkina Faso, open neo-colonial ambitions with active support for subversive networks and terrorists who are causing grief in our country and the Sahel, as well as the treachery and bias in speeches and opinions about our country, aiming to make it a pariah in the international community. In the face of these imperialist ambitions to dominate our country and enslave our people, we have chosen responsibility and sovereignty. The government wishes to emphasize that this decision in no way calls into question the historical, human, cultural, and social ties that unite the people of Burkina Faso and France. It is aimed solely at the institutional framework of relations between the two states at the diplomatic level. The government reassures both national and international audiences of its determination and commitment to ensure the protection of foreign nationals, to whom it reaffirms its hospitality, as well as the safeguarding of their interests. It calls on all citizens to act responsibly, with restraint and civility towards French nationals and all expatriates living in Burkina Faso, in strict compliance with the laws of the Republic. The government reaffirms its determination to pursue an independent foreign policy based on diversifying its partnerships, strengthening South-South cooperation, developing balanced relations with all states, and promoting peace, security, and sustainable development. The government of Burkina Faso remains open to dialogue with all states in the international community on the basis of mutual respect, reciprocity, sovereign equality, and the defense of each other's legitimate interests. It remains committed to building with all nations that cherish peace and justice, a free, fairer, and more united world. Done in Ouagadougou this 26th day of June 2026.
Burkina Faso has severed diplomatic relations with France, deepening a breakdown in ties between the West African nation and its former colonial ruler.
Le gouvernement du Burkina Faso porte à la connaissance de l'opinion nationale et internationale qu'il a pris la décision de rompre ses relations diplomatiques avec la République française pour compter de ce jour 26 juin 2026.
Authorities accused Paris of interfering in domestic affairs and supporting destabilizing networks, allegations France has previously denied. The move comes as Burkina Faso continues to battle a deadly Islamist insurgency and strengthens its shift away from traditional Western allies.
Something big has just happened in Burkina Faso. The government of Burkina Faso has severed all relations with France. According to the information that is coming in, it has ended all the relationship it had, all the diplomatic relationship. And from now, henceforth, the government of Burkina Faso and the people of Burkina Faso will not have any relationship with France. According to the spokesperson, the government of Burkina Faso has decided to cut all ties because France has been interfering with their politics, with their national interests, and even with their security. And many times, the government of Burkina Faso has come out and said that one of the players in its fight in terrorism is France. France has been responsible for what has been happening in the AES. And now they have decided to end all relations. This will basically mean that Burkina Faso and France are officially enemies.
So Mali did the same thing just like Burkina Faso. I have said this thing and I will say it again. Whatever Burkina Faso did, know that Mali is going to do the same thing. Or whatever Mali did, Burkina Faso is going to do the same thing. Whatever Niger did, know that these two countries are also going to follow to make sure that to support one another. Now, this is what unity is all about. If you go to Europe, those of you who have been there, you know that European police officers, European security agents, they work together to make sure that if there is a crime which is committed in Italy, Germany will investigate, other countries will investigate, they will call one another, like they will come together to make sure that to put the European interest first. This is what we are lacking on the continent in Africa. Now, last 2 days ago, Burkina Faso has cut diplomatic relations with France because France was meddling in the internal affairs of that country. Burkina Faso says, you know what, if you are not going to respect us, we are going to, in fact, remove your diplomats. Burkina Faso did. Now, the government of Mali under Assimi Goïta also told the French government that their ambassador, which is in Mali, the French ambassador, he only has like 72 hours to be in Mali, which means he has to leave that country within 72 hours. This is what I am talking about. This is what solidarity means. This is what unity means. This is what African countries are lacking. For instance, if we see insecurity in Nigeria currently, instead of the Nigerian government working with other African countries to make sure that we have a general plan, if one country, let's say, USA goes to Africa and commit crimes in other countries, we all kick their ambassadors out. Know that they are not going to mess with us. This will bring a development on the continent. But sadly, this is what African countries, did not realize. Unity is what we need. This is why Sahel countries are strong. Terrorists do not survive in that countries, even though they are being sponsored by countries like France, and other nations. But they did not last in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. When you go to Nigeria, they have been given red carpets. Now, kudos to Mali and Burkina Faso, and Niger is also going to do the same thing. Mark my words. Now, let me know what do you guys think in the comments, because the French ambassador in Mali, that man only has like 72 hours to leave the country because the Malian government is like, we do not welcome you anymore. You have to leave our country.
I tell you how petty and arrogant these people are. So France is now threatening Burkina Faso because Burkina Faso said, we've had enough. We are cutting off diplomatic ties with you. So France, Emmanuel Macron is so angry. They say they're going to think of a way of retaliating. Why must you be friends? You see how petty these people are? They're so petty, and I'm telling you, so they're going to retaliate in a way that is very punitive to Burkina Faso. This is the relationship that colonizers have with the ex-colonized, and no matter how much people tell you things have changed, things have not changed. It's like if you were the hunted, the hunter is never going to see you as human. Can you imagine that? Somebody has cut off diplomatic ties because they said, listen, I cannot be friends with you enough. And they're like, you must be my friend. It's just so incredible. And they are incredibly petty. It's just, but this is who they are. It's who they've always been. So there's no surprises there.
Burkina Faso versus France. Guys, it is getting crazier right now between these two countries. More tensions are escalating. According to the report available and according to French foreign minister, he said that France regrets after Burkina Faso break off diplomatic relation with France. So, according to the report right now, Ibrahim Traore, the Burkina Faso president, just made the decision to break off all the diplomatic ties with France after the European Parliament speaker from France, Christophe, passed a resolution against Burkina Faso a few days ago, accusing Ibrahim Traore of doing all manner of things, of causing insecurities. More accusation against Ibrahim Traore. And guess what? Ibrahim Traore didn't take this lightly. He immediately summoned European ambassador to Burkina Faso, delivered the message to European leaders, to all the European Parliament speakers. And the message was clear. Keep off from Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso is currently in West Africa and in African continent. Burkina Faso is not in Europe. So you guys don't have the right to interfere in our affairs. That was the message from European ambassador to European Parliament speaker. And guess what? Ibrahim Traore didn't end up there. Right now, the report is saying that Ibrahim Traore have already broke off all the diplomatic ties with France. So the French foreign minister said that France is regretting after Burkina Faso break off the diplomatic relation with France. And they are reviewing the possibility of responding to Burkina Faso over these diplomatic ties cut off. Now the question is, how will their response affect Burkina Faso? Burkina Faso currently don't need France. They don't need natural resources from France. They don't even need weapons from France. Even when France was in Burkina Faso, France refused to sell advanced weapons to Burkina Faso then for over 60 years. Right now, Burkina Faso needs Russia, China, North Korea, and other countries, right? They don't need France. But France cannot live without Burkina Faso natural resources. They need Burkina Faso. So, by French foreign minister saying they are trying to respond to Burkina Faso right now, I don't still understand how their response is going to affect Burkina Faso. Ibrahim Traore is giving these guys woto. Woto. Right now, they thought that they can still impose this their post-colonial mentality on Burkina Faso or on Mali or on Niger. It's no longer happening, no. This one sweet me, guys. So this is the current update right now. Ibrahim Traore is just hitting France. Why? Like this. Boom, boom, boom. From sending clear messages to European leaders right now to cut in all the diplomatic ties. You know, when Ibrahim Traore kicked away France from Burkina Faso, he still left some spaces, some gap. If France want to do win-win partnership, they are free to do that. But right now, he just closed everywhere, all the diplomatic ties. In fact, as I'm speaking to you guys right now, French embassy is closing in Burkina Faso. Although this cutting of diplomatic ties won't affect French people living in Burkina Faso, only Burkina Faso and France, according to the report, and according to the government of Burkina Faso, this cutting of ties is not about the French people, but French government. They are targeting French government. Mali is targeting French government. Niger is targeting French government. They are out for Emmanuel Macron. So France right now, they are regretting. Guys, what do you have to say? You need to like this video. You need to comment. You need to share this video so that pulpit in Africa will be seeing what is happening. Please, this is the only way you can help me. Just by liking this video, by sharing this video, if you really love what I'm doing. Because as long as you are liking, you are sharing, you are commenting, you guys will be encouraging me to do more researches, to bring out news to give to you guys. Please, I beg you, support me. Like this video, share and comment. This one sweet me. What about you?
Burkina Faso cut France off completely. I mean, they have severed all diplomatic relations. But let's talk about why. Because for the last 4 years, the EU, the UN, and France specifically have been condemning the sovereign military governments of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. They've been passing resolutions and suspending aid and calling press conferences and espousing the benefits of democracy and constitutional order. But let's ask the question that it seems nobody is willing to answer. Why does Europe care so much about how a sovereign state governs itself? Well, it's because France is suffering financially, and Africa is the reason for France's light still being on. You see, France generates 70% of its electricity from nuclear energy, and that nuclear program has run for decades on uranium pulled from African soil, specifically from Niger. That's a concession that France's Atomic Energy Commission claimed in 1968, and they've been extracting from Niger for 58 years. Well, last month, Niger canceled that concession entirely, and France's company, Orano, well, they were caught cooking the books. Niger didn't just ask France to leave, they took their uranium back. So how is France faring without Nigerian uranium? Well, France's national debt hit a record 3.46 trillion euros at the end of last year. That's 115% of their entire GDP. The IMF projects that that number is going to climb to nearly 130% by 2030. France's debt servicing costs alone are expected to reach 63 billion euros this year. The current credit rating was just downgraded. Their economy is growing at less than 1%. France is in some real financial trouble, and losing access to exploited African resources is making it worse. But while Europe is clutching its pearls about Sahel sovereignty, over 6 million Congolese people have been killed since 1996, while Western corporations continue to extract cobalt and gold from that same land. Sudan is living through one of the world's worst humanitarian crises, and Europe's response has been silence. But they did find their voice really quickly when African nations said that they don't need Europe anymore. And while all of this is happening, while Europe is demanding access to African resources, the EU just passed a law building deportation centers outside its borders and jailing African migrants for up to 2 years. You see, they don't want African people. They just want African resources. And they want them on their exploitative terms. Burkina Faso just said no. Let's hope that the whole continent of Africa follows suit. And if you didn't know, now you know.
Wow, Ibrahim Traore fascinates me. I'm not a geopolitical commentator, but here's a military captain who came to power in 2022 and has consistently said Burkina Faso's wealth should be with its people. He's expelled French troops, pushed for greater control over his country's gold and natural resources, backed local industry and agriculture, and now he's taken his boldest step yet. This is breaking news. Burkina Faso has officially cut diplomatic ties with France, accusing its former colonial ruler of interfering in its national affairs and acting against its interest. Now, of course, France rejects these accusations. Why is this such a big deal? Because for decades, many people in Burkina Faso have argued that France continued to wield political, military and economic influence long after the colonial rule officially ended. Traore's message has never changed. Burkina Faso's future should be decided in Ouagadougou, not Paris. Now, whether you like him or agree with him, it's easy to see why millions across Africa view him as a symbol of sovereignty, self-determination, and a leader prepared to challenge the old post-colonial order.
Diplomatic ties are for communication between countries where it's deemed beneficial for both sides to actually be talking to the other side. The West African nation of Burkina Faso has decided that France, their former colonial master, is not worth keeping ties with at this moment in time. So in the last 48 hours, they broke off their diplomatic ties as announced to the Burkinabe, the people of the nation, in a televised address yesterday, Friday. Their communications minister basically said, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but basically he said, France be moving mad. Can't trust them. Never could have. They keep trying to meddle in our internal affairs. And then he even accused France of supporting insurgents and subversive networks within Burkina Faso. Basically saying, you're helping rebel groups and people who want to destabilize, overthrow the government in Burkina Faso because Burkina Faso represents something powerful that you fear, especially if other nations in West Africa and Africa as a whole see what you don't want them to see. So you're helping our enemies inside the state destabilize the state. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Hang up.
Burkina Faso and their leader Ibrahim Traore is one of those nations and one of those leaders that don't really get coverage in the Western world, even though I would assess that what's happening here in West Africa could contribute to the shaping of much of the continent. The AES, the Alliance of Sahel States, is, if you've seen my previous videos on the topic, a very pivotal, you could say, union of nations, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. We won't get into that now. But you have to remember, Africa is a continent that was once so colonized, so thoroughly and violently during the Victorian era, during Europe's industrialization, that many of the nations here in this African continent to this day remain unstable, economically impoverished, dependent on aid and handouts and their former colonial masters, and they struggle on, basically surviving colonization. They're just survivors. And democracy here especially, one could argue, is the most pointless. I have to say it. Many could argue, right? Analytically, this is where my bias is coming out, but analytically speaking, this is not biased. Many African countries have democracy, but they're still poor. And really poor. And the people change out, the leaders change out in the democracy. There's the nice little merry-go-round of officials, but everyone stays poor. You could be like, Baba, you are biased, because let's be honest, democracy everywhere is like that. Don't you have 7 prime ministers in 10 years? Shush about that, shush. We're not talking about the UK right now. Burkina Faso is basically built different. They don't have democracy, by the way. For better or worse. They have a military ruler, Ibrahim Traore. Burkina Faso, they threw off their reliance on their old masters, said that economic prosperity and uplifting the nation is more important than the vote at this moment. So we're reprioritizing the system, and they're focusing on trying to build self-sufficiency and sovereignty. It's not going to be easy, and it hasn't been easy so far, but there can be no doubt. If you look up the stats, they have done a lot in terms of taking things that they were reliant on others for and building it domestically. Building domestically the capabilities of extracting from the ground of Burkina Faso resources and selling them in a way that brings the wealth and the benefits to the nation. It doesn't just for free, basically, almost for free, just hand out the resources of this African country, and some other country takes the spoils, takes the profits. And that's something that a lot of African countries to this day struggle with. They got the wealth in terms of natural resources, but they're just structured, one could argue intentionally structured by outside powers, to not be able to reap the benefits of that wealth that lie beneath their feet. Someone else benefits all the way over there on that continent. Support from other nations when it comes to the security of Burkina Faso, when it comes to investment needed by Burkina Faso, especially from China, may offer this country a way to pursue success, pursue prosperity for the nation of 23 million people. Now, from France's perspective, I'm not saying they do support any groups or agents to destabilize the Burkinabe state. I'm not saying that, because I have no public evidence to say that they do. But analytically, it would make sense if France chose to take that route and try and destabilize the nation, try and even overthrow the government. Just objectively, it makes sense. France is a nation that is built and that has benefited greatly from its colonial territories in Africa. Even to this day, many natural resources are exported from Africa to France at shockingly discounted rates, and then France uses its own advanced industries to level up those goods, value add, as the economists would say, and then they sell them for a fabulous profit. Burkina Faso is a nation that's ripped itself out of France's sphere of influence. They still have some ties. They're not fully out. They're not fully sovereign in that regard. They're not fully independent of, not reliant anymore on France. Their currency is still, for example, is tied to France. The CFA franc is the Burkina Faso currency, and that's pegged to the euro, which is France's currency. Generally, though, the country is pulling away from France, has been for several years. So for French geopolitical benefit, it makes sense to make the journey for Burkina Faso particularly painful. So other nations still within France's sphere of influence can be shown Burkina Faso as an example by France. They can say, look over there, see how hard it is to go alone. I would not recommend it, mon ami. You can if you want to, but I would not recommend it. Stay close to les Français and we will take good care of you. And as we always have, would you like croissant? The Burkina Faso claim that France is interfering in internal matters of the state and supporting rebels and dangerous elements in an effort to destabilize the country is plausible, even if I cannot say it's confirmed by actual facts on the ground, verified by outside sources. I can't say that, but it is plausible when you objectively look at it. And verified or not, the country has used that excuse, you could say, to cut ties with France. Let us see where things go from here.
Guys, this is a breaking news. Burkina Faso finally officially cut ties with France. What happened in Brussels in the European Parliament? I told you guys that Christophe Gomez was the one that brought this resolution. He was MEP of the European Parliament. So he was the one that brought the resolution, and according to the official statement from Burkina Faso, they said after thorough review of the relationship between Burkina Faso and France, the government of Burkina Faso have come to realize that the principle of respect, trust, and non-interference in domestic affairs, and also for respect of sovereignty, has no longer upheld by France. So now the government has decided to cut diplomatic ties with France, but this has nothing to do with the French citizens. This is like diplomatic ties between the government, not the people. The French citizens have rights to go to Burkina Faso. The Burkinabés have rights to come to France. The government of Burkina Faso also emphasized that the citizens of Burkina Faso should very take care of the French citizens there and also the other foreign nationals, and to maintain the law of Burkina Faso. And also Ibrahim Traore accused France that France is against the interest of Burkina Faso. This is the game. Like Ibrahim Traore is now in the game, playing the game. He accused France of acting against the interest of Burkina Faso. So these are the reasons, trying to isolate them from international stage and supporting terrorism to destabilize the country. Is like France is still the colonial master. It is that tough, and this diplomatic tie is immediate effect. This statement came out yesterday after many years. So finally France has to close their embassy in Burkina Faso.
France just tried to overthrow the government of Burkina Faso just a few months after France was kicked out of Burkina Faso. Well, Burkina Faso says it has stopped what they describe as a major plot against their military government. And according to officials, several people have already been arrested, including 2 senior military officials, suggesting this was a high-level coup attempt. But here is where things get interesting. Burkina Faso claims that many of the people involved in this plot were based in the neighbouring country of the Ivory Coast. And officials say that the plan was for armed groups to cross the border into Burkina Faso and launch attacks within their country. Now, if you followed this region before, you'll know that the Ivory Coast is one of France's strongest regional allies. And that's why some people have accused France of aiding and helping the plotters. However, I will say Burkina Faso has not provided any public information of how France might be behind this. But officials also made another claim. They said the goal was not to take control of the country and overthrow the government. They say the plan was to cause chaos within the country from those attacks that were planned, and then force international intervention. And people are saying, because France only recently was kicked out of Burkina Faso, that they would be the first country to be invited in to be that international intervention country. So there would be good reason for France to be behind it. What we do know for certain is that arrests have been made, and tensions between Burkina Faso, the Ivory Coast, and France continue to grow. Like I said, only months after France was kicked out of the country.
Every single African country should learn from Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso have officially cut all diplomatic with France. They have said, you French people have been here for so long, it's time for you guys to go. And France is still colonizing most of the French countries in Africa, countries like Burkina Faso, countries like Mali, Niger, even we can even say Senegal and the rest of the other Anglophone. They have so much influence in these countries, and Burkina Faso is waking up. Those three Saharian states, countries, those are the only leaders in this African continent. The rest of African leaders are puppets, and the Western countries, they know that they can give them any, you just have to pay them. That's all you need. Pay these people. They're going to do whatever you want. They're going to give you all the minerals. They're going to sell their people. And shout out to Captain Ibrahim Traore. This is the leader. This man, true leader in Africa. He should be in charge of the whole continent. I wonder why USA and the rest of these other countries, they don't like the guy, because he is too good. He's very, very important to African people, and African people needs to protect Ibrahim Traore.
You see, I like the way the AES is just moving. I just love how the AES is just moving. And also the fact that if Ibrahim Traore, or let's say Burkina Faso, does or takes a decision of this sort, all the AES partners or countries also do the same thing. So in the coming days, definitely we are going to hear about the decision that Niger and Mali have also taken. And for me, that is what we call unity. And it's so beautiful. I wish all African countries, or we even have about 20 African strong countries that will be moving this way. I'm telling you, like, it will be difficult for these Europeans and Americans to penetrate. Because what at all do you want from us? We said we don't want to have anything to do with you. Why are you still meddling in our affairs? All because you have some people in our country, or your representatives in our country. So any little information you get, you think, and come to think of it, listen, some of these insecurities that France even took Burkina Faso to the EU Parliament or whatever, and talking about it is going to affect other like West African countries and all that. This thing is not just something that came out of the blue. It is definitely, or it was definitely orchestrated by these same people. We know when some military head in the United States was being questioned about their funding and what they've been doing and all that, we all saw the revelation. People who were funding the Boko Harams and all these insurgencies in so many African countries. So we know them and we know what they can do. So I will never be surprised to see that all these insecurities is also created or like it was created by them. Leave them alone. Leave us alone. Leave Africa alone. We are tired. Thank you so much for watching.